So one of the central tenets of my worldview at this point is that even though human evolution is a very long story about cooperation, we can all look at the world that we have right now and see that something else is at play. And that gives rise to a lot of speculation, well-meaning theorizing, conspiracy theories about what's going on in the world. And I think that I think it's actually valuable to chase down those rabbit holes and actually look into all of that. But at the same time, it's really important to pull it back and say, okay, well, judging from an Occam's razor sort of standpoint, what's the most likely root cause of all of this? And then you get into people that think that the real problem is either just that human beings are generally selfish or stupid or uneducated. That's a big one that I think is really easy to fall prey to, thinking that some education will change the equation. But my version of it is this. I think that human beings' evolution dictated cooperation amongst small groups, and I think that when you're talking about concepts like the I'm blanking on the number. Bernard Kilworth number is the one that I use, but there's another one that's more famous. Damn it. I'll remember in a second. Anyway, the human brain is only really hardwired to accommodate somewhere, depending on who you ask and the researchers involved in this field, somewhere between 150 and 300 meaningful character assessments. And that's sort of a hard limit. And it correlates to healthy tribe sizes in a lot of interesting ways. And I think it's a fairly uncontroversial starting point. So kind of reasoning from first principles, it's a good shorthand way of saying, okay, we know this to be fairly true. So we've evolved to function very well in groups of between 150 and 300 people, which is actually a huge number if you think about it in terms of like hunter-gatherers and stuff like that. But it's a very small number when you plug it into the bureaucracies that we're all subject to now. So my little theory about this is that at a certain point there was a shift that occurred, and it could be as simple as the agricultural revolution or any number of other factors, but that is not what's important as far as I'm concerned. What's important is that a shift occurred where the evolutionary advantage shifted from cooperative mindset and worldview to a parasitic worldview. and mindset. And that's what I call variously psychopathic or sociopathic energy or worldview or mindset. Okay, so when I talk about sociopaths, a lot of times I'm not talking about individual sociopaths or psychopaths. All of those fine distinctions are not really the big issue. The big issue is that at a certain level, human civilization was structured in a way that gave the advantage to sociopaths, to that sort of worldview, Machiavellian worldview. And I think it's real simple. I think it's just a matter of a degree of complexity and scale importantly. And today we're bombarded with all of these theories about the advantages of scale. And I actually think a lot of it borders on disinfo. I think that human beings are wired to function best in what I call virtual village scales of 150 to 300 people. I think that hardwired limit should be recognized and honored, and not be seen as a vestige of a bygone era that needs to be overcome. I think that any bureaucracy that vastly exceeds the Dunbar's number, that's what it is. Any bureaucracy that vastly exceeds the Dunbar's number or the Bernard Kilworth number, which is like a range almost up to about 300. The Dunbar's number is 150. So any bureaucracy that vastly exceeds that sort of a range is not going to be vulnerable or corruptible. It is inevitable that it will be infiltrated by sociopaths and or by that mentality. And I've talked before about the difference between a primary psychopath and a secondary psychopath. Primary psychopaths are biologically hardwired for that sort of behavior, and secondary psychopaths are either traumatized or just for whatever reason adopt a parasitic worldview because they look around at the world and come to the conclusion that that's where the butter is on that bread. So at any rate, huge, complex bureaucracies are awesome for psychopaths because they can hone their skills, burn lots of bridges, and move to a new area where they're not really easily spotted. Whereas the old village structure that we're all, again, biologically hardwired to function best in, you would keep track of such things. And again, I'm not advocating going on witch hunts or anything like that. But what I am advocating for is keeping track of problematic people and problematic worldviews, and just recognizing that is the way it is. And I'm not telling anybody how to do their thing, but when I come to the conclusion that somebody is a psychopath or a sociopath or a malignant narcissist or something like that, well, that's pretty much the end of dealing with that person. And I don't have to prove it. I don't go after them. I just stay the hell away from them. And I would recommend that people do that. But if you don't want to do that, that's your own business. village structures did not go on witch hunts. If there was somebody that was some kind of serial killer, yeah, that would be different. But what they primarily did was, and most sociopaths and psychopaths are not serial killers. Obviously, they're just parasites, and so you can find places in a functional society that they work just fine. But they need to be recognized, and if they're not, they can do incalculable damage to not only individual people but the structure of society itself. So the ways that earlier cultures took care of that, or at least warned each other about it, was in the form of things like Grimm's tales. The Brothers Grimm had their terminology for what they were dealing with in terms of evil in the world, and the stories that we all heard growing up, designed to spook us on Halloween and stuff like that, vampires and werewolves and stuff like this. These were warnings about people that appeared to be just like us, but weren't. They were missing crucial elements in their makeup that that would allow people to let their guard down and be trusting. So now we've got a society that is entirely structured around the fiction of economies of scale. And over time, the advantage has gone more and more and more toward people who are ruthless parasites. And it's not, there's no conspiracy necessary. It's just an inevitability of math and psychology. So, and I don't think that they necessarily coordinate with each other, but they definitely are going to be opportunist about anything that comes up. If they have lots of power and money, they're going to be ready to capitalize on whatever comes down the pike. Are there conspiracies? Clearly, but they're not necessary. So that's the nutshell version of why getting back to a more reasonable scale for structuring human society is such an important element. Hopefully I can flesh that out a little bit more soon.